Welcome to Not Your Ordinary Parts, a podcast where we talk about hard things associated with the human experience with the goal of increasing awareness, growth, and healing. You may hear information from professionally licensed therapists, life coaches, healers, doctors, etc. This information is not medical advice or therapy and is not meant to replace actual therapy or instructions given by a doctor or personal therapist. I'm your host, Jalon Johnson. My guest today is Dustan Drake. Dustan is a trauma-informed coach, speaker, and mentor whose work is changing the way people heal from emotional wounds, rediscover their worth, and reclaim their identity after pain. His coaching is rooted not just in theory, but in lived experience. For years, Dustan was running from shame, from self-doubt, and from the deep belief that he wasn't enough. And like so many, he was functioning on the outside, but fragmented within. It took a breaking point, an emotional and spiritual collapse, for Dustan to begin the journey inward, learn how to sit with pain instead of avoid it, and to release the pressure of performance and rediscover the person he was always meant to be. That transformation became his mission, and today he uses everything he's lived, studied, and survived to help others do the same. Dustan's coaching blends nervous system regulation, emotional processing, and deep subconscious reprogramming to support clients in breaking toxic cycles, reconnecting with their bodies, and coming home to themselves. His work has helped people move from self-sabotage to self-trust, from over-functioning to inner peace, and he does it all with raw honesty and deep compassion. In addition to his coaching, Dustan is co-author of a children's book rooted in the technique he co-created called Dynamic Duo Hypnosis, a story designed to help kids release emotional baggage and limiting beliefs before they take root. He's also on the path to becoming a registered investment advisor with a mission to support others in not just emotional and spiritual abundance, but financial wholeness too. Whether through coaching, writing, or sharing his voice online, Dustan shows up with one message: you are not broken, just burdened. And healing isn't a dream, it's your birthright. So, Dustan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you, man. Well said. I don't know if I deserve that intro, man. That was pretty amazing. Thank you.
Of course you do. Also, I gave a bit of an introduction, but so that the audience can get to know you a little bit better, would you mind giving us a little bit of background about yourself and how you got to how and who and where you are today?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a wild ride, man. I never set out to do what I'm doing. It kind of came to me. And I would say, I used to be an engineer. I lived a very material life. I was having all the things and doing all the doings. And honestly, it was really a shocking diagnosis that set me on my path. And that was 14 years ago, and it changed my whole life. And so when I think about what I'm doing professionally, how I live, or really on a soul level, like what I stand for, it all started then as far as the shift. But I don't believe it all started then as far as I kind of believe I was meant to walk this path, this life. But the diagnosis really set me on a path of, I got to figure this out. And if I don't start figuring this out, my quality of life is going to be rapidly dwindling. And so I went into the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical. And for 14 years, trial by fire, I've had to figure these things out to help myself. And so whether you call it God or the universe or purpose or whatever it is, was it 3-4 years ago, people just started to actually ask me for help. And they were quite older than me. So it was kind of weird. I was like, I thought it was actually the first time someone asked me to coach him, I thought it was a joke. He was 30, 40 years older than me. And I was like, are you serious? We're out to dinner. And he said, no, honestly, man, he said, you've been exposed to a lot of struggle in life for someone your age. And he said, the way as a man that you live, the way that you present yourself and your energy, I haven't seen that often, and I'd like to learn from you. And I was like, I almost started crying. I was like, you're serious? And so that's kind of a really rough summary of how I got into doing what I'm doing now. And then, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but yeah, it's been a wild ride. I've traveled the world, learned a lot of stuff, and it's humbling to share with others things I've learned that help me get me out of my suffering and hopefully shorten their time there and improve their life. So,
Mhm. Thanks for
yeah,
sharing that, bro. And
yeah.
um, just in getting to know you, like I really, really enjoy who you are, who you've become, and how you've taken your journey and transformed it into creating space for others and helping others to, shorten their time and what you went through.
Mm,
And I put a lot of effort into this outline because I wanted to give listeners the opportunity to really get to know you. And
yeah.
I don't want to miss anything, so I'm going to be reading a lot. So
All good.
um the way that you do show up, your presence, it embodies vulnerability as a man, and not just as a concept, but as a practice. And I'm pretty sure that's why you had somebody 30, 40 years older than you ask you to coach them. It's not a shocker because that's rare, especially in a culture where we're told to armor up and to never let our guard down as men, because
Yeah.
that's just what we're told to do. But your work is a direct challenge to that narrative,
Mhm.
a direct challenge to that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're taught to be strong, silent, and in control, those messages can create so much internal shame for us as men. So
Mm.
I wanted to ask you, what did masculinity mean to you growing up, and um, how did that definition shift, or what did you have to unlearn once you started healing?
It's a really good question, man. It's been a it's been a journey for sure. So I didn't have any good male role models. Excuse me. Um, I didn't have any good male role models, and I was also bullied. And I was always kind of the skinny kid. Um, and so for me in high school, I was so my self-esteem was so low, and I was so lost, and I honestly didn't feel like a man until in the last 5 years of my life, honestly. And that has increased in the last 5 years to maybe honestly in the last 2 or 3. I wouldn't say I actually really felt like a man, which is kind of wild to say that, honestly. Like, it
Mm.
was one of my biggest shame points. Uh, I turned 40 this year. And it's like, for most of my life, for 35 years, to really not feel like a man and be so lost and confused with what that meant. I mean, that's a vulnerable thing. And so, I believe it's like the hero's journey or taking our mess and making it our message, where I thought it meant being tough, being stoic, being big and strong, being able to fight, um, being able to get with a lot of women. And a lot of that couldn't be further from the truth. To me, what I think of it now is I know who I am. I'm able to feel my emotions, my thoughts, and the uncomfort of discipline and life. I mean, there's inevitable suffering that we all go through. I'm able to feel that with a level of lack of conditions and just feeling it unconditionally, to where then I can respond. I'm responsible. I can respond to the world around me. And therefore I can lead, not dictate, but I can lead. I can provide structure for myself and those around me. I provide safety because I face so many of my inner, baggage and my inner demons and all that stuff. And then I can lead by example with strength. It's like, I think of it like the warrior in the garden, but not the gardener who's pretending to be a really good warrior and doesn't know what he's doing. And so for me, it's evolved significantly. And I think it's what most of us men are trying to achieve by what we see. We're trying to do and have all these things, and it's confusing. We're trying to, on the surface, on the outside, emit this presence that I'm a man, I'm strong, and I'm not going to share my emotions, and I need to, blah, blah. And I think some of those things from a peaceful, harmonic place can manifest, but that's because they come organically from something much deeper within. So it's like a 180 shift, honestly. And what's beautiful is that even though I'm the youngest in my family, and being an old soul, a lot of people I hang out with are quite older than me. I'm able to have like an authentic impact on my family and friends where they see how I've changed. And I think as a man, I might actually get kind of emotional sharing this, but let me give you a quick little story.
Sure.
I share this with a lot of clients, and I think it's a really cool story. It actually ties into the presence process. So for those listening, that's one of my favorite books. I mentioned to Jaylon by Michael Brown. Changed my life. And I had been doing this practice from this book, and it's all really about feeling unconditionally. And there's a lot of nuances of that. But years ago, I was living with my mom, and I had a lot of baggage around money, femininity. Like I want to be a man, but I'm still fighting the feminine and fighting myself, and I don't even know what that really means. But I want to have that because I should have it. And I'd been gone for a lot. I traveled the world. I was away for 10 years off in, college and corporate. But I was living with my mom. And it was one day in the kitchen. My sister was there. My niece was there. And I got triggered. My mom said something to me. I forget how many years ago this was, maybe 7, 8 years ago. And it wasn't anything big. It was like asking me to do something or something like that. And I was at the microwave, and I just got so disproportionately triggered. I wasn't yelling, or I wasn't being physically violent or anything, but like the energy right within my system, it was just like a switch. And I got so angry, and I said something kind of snarky. And the dance that I would do with my mom and people in my family, I won't say names, but there are still tendencies there, kind of that generational baggage that keeps getting recycled. And I was playing that, but I knew enough. I'd healed enough. I'd done that presence process enough. I'd been feeling my feelings and getting really acquainted with my thoughts and my feelings and my body and my heart and who am I and what is all this stuff, and it's not me, and what does that mean, and I'm not even my body, and what does that mean, to where I got triggered. She runs off to the garden. So the dance of baggage began, but I knew enough to be like, no, I screwed up. It is what it is. But this is an opportunity. I need to stop it right now. And I need to go, really do the work. So what I did, I said, everyone, please excuse me. I'm going to go upstairs. Went upstairs, and for about 30 minutes, I did the presence process. And here's the thing, we were kind of talking about this earlier. Like, it's not complicated. It's simple, but it's very difficult for most of us to kind of do these things that we all talk about on podcasts and books and stuff. But for me, with my mother, it was one of the darkest, most like deeply rooted angers I had of that battle with the feminine in a really unhealthy way, even though I was, in my early 30s. So I sit down and I say, okay, Dustin, you're angry. You're really angry, like disproportionately angry. But when was the last time you felt this anger? Because it's not her. She's just a messenger. Take responsibility for what I'm feeling, though it's not me. A little bit of healthy disassociation between my consciousness and the feeling itself. And I sat there and I closed my eyes And I'm like, my face is red. I'm like, I'm huffing and puffing. I'm just like, whoa, and I said, no, when was the last time you felt this? And I went back. Some people call this Gestalt. There's different approaches to this, but I went back in my timeline. And I'm like, not resisting the anger. I'm not judging the anger. I'm not projecting it onto my mother, just a messenger. I call them nouns, a person, place, thing, whatever that triggered me, but it's not the actual issue. It's just arising something in me that's already within me that's mine to own. And I sat there and I went back to very early age. Sometimes I've gone to like even in the womb. That time I went to very early age. And as you might know, a lot of therapists know this, like what's beneath anger, it's typically sadness. And I knew enough to where I wasn't fully surprised in the process and I've been doing work, but I was astonished at how profound and how significant it was. All the anger of not pushing it, not grasping it, not judging it, just feeling it without even identifying with it. I went all the way back to childhood, all these things. This anger was here. This was here. The same frequency. Like, how is this in my body? I know it, because I'll get it in my neck and my face and my chest and different places. And I was able to feel the anger enough to where then I went into sadness. Dude, I cried like a baby for like 20 minutes straight. I wept and I wept and I wept. And it was then this not forced compassion or empathy, but organic. And then it was wild. Like it turned into love. I mean, we're talking at 30 minutes, like 30 something years of this baggage being in my system, from sharp anger to immense emotional release and sadness, all just sitting alone by myself. And it was so profound, man. I felt like so cleansed afterward. I was like, to me, this is part of what it means to be a man. To be, I think, an adult, because I think we get that confused with age, bigger, older people, when it's just not really necessarily the case. But I was like, this is what maturity, this is what manliness feels like. I went downstairs and I said, hey, sis, where's mom? And she's kind of like, I don't want to get involved because she doesn't know what's going on. It's like, old family patterns. And I go outside and my mom likes to, typically get busy. And, she likes to garden and to feel better. And when I said, hey, mom, do you have a second? And she kind of paused. It's like this program dance we're doing, like, you're not doing it. What's going on? So I sensed confusion. And I said, look, please forgive me for how I reacted. That is not your fault. And thank you, because you just gave me one of the greatest gifts I think I've ever received, which was the opportunity for me to do my work in the moment, and to really heal and grow something very old and very, very heavy. So thank you. That will not happen again. And I love you. And she started just bawling and I started bawling. And she just said, I mean, like, seriously, when I say it, I'm like, it almost sounds kind of surreal, but I gave her a big hug and I held her. I said, Mom, I love you. That is not your burden to bear. That was me. Let it go. I love you. It's okay. And we just cried and I held her and I still talk about that with her. And I feel like at that point, my life really shifted. It was like all this work. It's not one moment, but I feel like we do all these things and then we have those big moments, but it's because of all this stuff. And for me, that was one of my big like levels up of, oh my God, like I'm really shifting this. You can really improve your life and let go of this stuff. So a long-winded answer there, but to me, it's just a moment I'll never forget. And the principles of it really ties deeply into who I am and what I stand for. So, yeah.
I refuse to let you disrespect that story by calling it long-winded.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bro, that was beautiful. Like I actually pictured you in the garden with your mom doing that, having that moment. Thank you so much for sharing that, man.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for that. Was there ever a time in your life where vulnerability felt like a threat to your identity rather than like a source of strength? Because now you know that
Oh yeah.
vulnerability is, something that can say that you're a man and you're strong because you are vulnerable, which is not the norm. But was there ever a time
Yeah.
when it felt like a threat?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Um, most of my life, and I'm a real fan of honesty. I've watched a lot of podcasts, a lot of public speakers, a lot of authors, and there's so much beauty there. And I feel like one of the things I fell into a trap of was feeling like people had it all figured out. I don't. I don't think any of us do. Um, we figure out a lot of stuff, but we never have it figured out. So my honest answer, man, is uh, despite all the cool stuff that's happened, I still face that. I don't know if that'll ever go away, but it's just very small. But I think to get more to the core of your question, though, is it was honestly Brene Brown's TED Talk. You might know it. It became quite famous about vulnerability. That I don't know when that was 8-9 years ago when I saw it. That it was like this epiphany, and I watched. There was those two. There's the first one, and then the second one. They were like really big, and that was like a switch. And I was like, wait a minute, there's something more to the story here. Um, and so for me, it was always bad. It was always bad. Vulnerability is bad. It's a threat. It's dangerous. Avoid it. Do things to feel better. Avoid things that make you feel vulnerable or uncomfortable. And then, yeah, in the last 10 years, I really started challenging that, and that Brene Brown speech really sped it up. And so it's completely opposite now. And I think just as a human, I agree wholeheartedly with what she said. Like, it's the birthplace of real connection. And I feel like in our species, there's an epidemic of anxiety and stress and depression, and I feel like loneliness. And I feel that's intrinsically connected to generational or like just long standing programming, or maybe just habit of avoiding that. And I think it did in some places come from a logical sense. Like if you look at the animal kingdom and different things, like there is some sense to it. There's some where I feel like even though we're on this beautiful podcast, I'm not going to share everything because I feel like certain levels of vulnerability have to be earned. But we have to have some faith and vulnerability to start somewhere that feels maybe not completely safe. I don't know if it ever feels completely safe, but safe within our system enough because we know ourselves to where it's like, I could go to 100, but this person is earned 5. But I can lead that. And then by that dynamic, it's like that healthy vulnerability within boundaries. And that's different for everyone. So it's not black and white for me, but I feel that I'll give you another story really quick, if you don't mind. I
It
love
doesn't have
telling
to be
stories.
really quick. It doesn't have to be.
Okay, cool. So I think this is a really, really good example that might inspire others. And it's another just beautiful, pivotal moment that has actually had more to like men, because I know there's so many women that statistically kind of dominate this industry or this topic. So I'm excited to share more about the male side. So, okay. So long journey. Vulnerability is a good friend of mine now. And it is the reason for many, many, many good things in my life. And all my best relationships, whether platonic, with men, female, intimately, you name it. But one really cool thing is from being bullied, insecure, low self-esteem, lost, feeling like a broken boy, a little boy, even though I was in an older man's body, to then vulnerability is such a superpower. To then experiencing this story with a man. I won't say his name to respect his privacy, but a good friend of mine where we're at this retreat, and I have to be mindful not share too much detail, but um, it was a retreat where you have to face a lot of your baggage, and a personal empowerment retreat. And we had finished a segment of it, and people were going out to drink and celebrate. And he and I were at this hotel, and I just looked at him. I was like, I don't want to go drink. He's like, me neither. And we're like, we've been talking about eye gazing. I don't know. Are you familiar with eye gazing?
No, not really.
Okay. For those listening, I'll give a quick little thing. So, eye gazing is very simple and wildly vulnerable, but with those where it's appropriate and you feel safe and it's within your boundaries, it's wildly valuable, especially with intimate partners. And it's very simple though. You just sit cross-legged, sitting in a chair, and you usually set a timer. 1 to 10 minutes is a good starting point based on the person's, comfort level. And you turn off your cell phones. You stop all distractions. You don't speak at all for that time, and you just simply look at each other. It is wildly vulnerable, and so many things unravel. You might laugh, you might cry, all these things happen, but it's very beautiful, but it's very vulnerable. Um, and he and I had been kind of joking about doing that for a while, but we never done it. And so we sat in this room when everyone else was going out to kind of celebrate and party. And we're like, two straight grown men in their 30s and 40s, just we're like, okay, it's time. Let's do this. So we sit down. We didn't set a timer, but a stopwatch instead. And we face these two chairs in this in this hotel room. And I'd never done this with a man. Like a couple clients, but like that's a very different thing because it's not for me. We did it for like 30 minutes. We both bawled so much that we kind of joked because it was like if someone walks in, this will look really weird. There was tissues all around us. We were like snot, tears. As men, we had never let another man see us that way. And in levels, we'd never let anyone see us that way. Where we shared different, he's like, I've never felt that in my life. What just happened? He's like, my soul, and the whole thing went almost an hour, like the whole experience. But to me, it's like from this whole extreme of vulnerability is bad and painful and should be avoided like the plague, to one of the greatest moments in my life, two straight men just sitting there where there's usually all these masks and shoulds and rules. And this is like the last thing you would typically do with another, brother. And I will never forget it. And there's like a bond that's there now. It opened up so many shares, so many things to support, to love, to care for, to laugh, to explore. And he's one of my best friends now. And so to me, there's a large range, but it was like soul level connection, man. Like we were crying for things we didn't even know was happening. Like it was out of our control almost. And it just started with that simple eye gaze and being willing to be vulnerable. So yeah, I've had a very, very big shift when it comes to that topic of life, to say the least. So,
What are some of the most misunderstood aspects of masculinity that you've seen? Also, while you're thinking about that, I didn't mean to skip over your story. That was incredible. So I just want to acknowledge that.
thank you, man. All good. Yeah, I think there's a few books and authors that really impacted me in this regard. Um, so I think to give them due credit, one of them is very popular. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That's where I started. Then I went to the Masculinity or the Masculine in Relationship by I think G.S. Youngblood, and then the there's another one by two, I think, therapists or psychologists called, what is it? The um, warrior, lover, or king, warrior, magician. I'm blanking on it. It's a really kind of funky title, but all those things really started shifting my perspective and the presence process and others. So to me, it's been a wild ride. And I used to think it was don't share your emotions, know how to fight. Unfortunately, like be really good with women, even at the cost of their hearts, and make a lot of money and have a lot of things. To be tough. And it's, it's changed quite a bit. And so to me, it's, more about being grounded within myself, where my thoughts, my emotions, my body, my body were in a harmony. And because of that, I provide safety, structure, leadership, and how do I say that last piece? I think being able to lovingly and sometimes sternly, when it's needed, mirror back to people their own experience with being able to not interject myself into it and muddle it when it's needed. Um, Best of my ability, that's how I would summarize it.
Mm. I think that takes a lot of talent and a lot of work to be able to do that, because I think it's just normal to, give back and inject ourselves into it, because all we have is our lived experience that we can give others advice on, or, recommendations or what have you. So to be able to just see the person and take ourselves completely out of it, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's needed in this world.
Mm. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Um, something that you do is you show up for men in a very intentional way. What are the parts of male identity that you think are longing to be seen and held, but rarely are?
Another great question. Um, so I've traveled a lot in my life, been very blessed, and amongst many cultures, some very different than ours. I've come to really firmly believe that men or women and animals, um, what we all really want to be, aside from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like food, shelter, things like that, we all want to be seen. And like almost like from the movie Avatar, like not, okay, I see you, dude. Cool. There you are. But I see you. Like my consciousness, my soul, I'm able to see and experience and honor you
Mm.
as you and not try to make you something else. So we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. Essentially, we all want to be loved and know that we're enough. I mean, I really believe that. It's maybe an oversimplification in ways, but obviously you go on a lot of nuances there. But in an attempt to give somewhat of a concise answer, I think I would say that. And so for men specifically, whew, man, I think this is linked to so much generational baggage. And I think I've honestly seen it swing. Like, I think where we come from is like you're not supposed to let your heart be seen. You're supposed to have it all figured out. You're supposed to be tough. You're supposed to have the answers. You're supposed to provide. You're supposed to, it's like so much sacrifice without an honoring of, I really think, especially men, we like to be respected. And I think there's a lot of confusion around that. Like women and men, we have like core differences. And for a lot of men, for me, I'll speak, Respect is very important. It needs to be earned, but it's very important as long as I'm earning it. Loyalty, right? And so for those pieces, I think it's I think it's been an interesting shift. I think we have like a species wide leveling up, like an awakening. Where I think with anything, when we start here, the pendulum always swings, and then we kind of find our new homeostasis. And I would speak, for me, I used to share everything with everyone, and I was crying all the time, and that's not inherently bad. And I feel I learned there's like a homeostasis. I'll give you a clear example. Where for me, I went through a phase where I was like, especially in my intimate relationships, I'm like, well, I need to share, my emotions. I got to feel everything. And okay, so I need to now talk with my girlfriend, my partner about all this stuff. And I feel like I learned for me, that's where I went too far. And to me, I was going more like we all have masculine and feminine within us, and it's always oscillating. But I was like loving my healing journey so much that I was doing that in ways that actually started, I think, to kind of take away from my core authentic masculinity. And so one clear example would be, I think what most, men, do is I feel anger, but I just push it down, distract, burst out, and either hurt those around me through emotional, verbal, or physical violence, right? Because I have no healthy relationship with that. But on the other side, without going to a whole nother extreme, I've learned that something that's very valuable, and I've talked to a lot of women about it. So far, there's like a good amount of feedback where instead of reacting to it or suppressing it, I simply say, you know what, babe, I'm feeling pretty angry right now. Then she knows, because women are more in tune than men in a lot of ways. And I feel like where we lose trust is that we try to pretend and put on all these masks, and women are like, if you only knew how much I see through all that, it's almost kind of silly. And so I think to not suppress and hide it, but to not overly swim around in it all the time, but to be like, okay, I'm here. I want to honor you and myself. I'm really angry. I don't want to tell you all about all the details. I can feel it. I'll share some of the key points if you'd like, but I want you to know that because I want you to feel safe and I want you to know where I'm at, but I don't need you to fix it. And so to me, that's like a pretty cool part of my journey where, one step further, and this is a nuance I learned from, another really good book. And it's actually, I think, the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, one of his newer books. And I'm blanking on the title. Please forgive me, but maybe I can text you later, of where he said, what I've realized as a man, and this blew my mind. This only maybe 2 years ago I learned this. And he said, it is so important for us men to share, even beyond what I just, said, but in the masculine, feminine polarity that makes it 1 + 1 = 3, and not like equality, but not sameness. Our differences are very powerful. He said, we're better off sharing those extra details with men, with our brothers. If we overshare to our partners, it subconsciously actually confuses the feminine and pushes them more into the masculine, which is not what we want. I'm not saying this is a blanket statement for everybody. There's always nuances. But like, as I'm still always trying to enhance my part of this human experience, I'm like, that was really cool. So I don't want to suppress it. I want to feel it, but I don't want to overshare it because I want to still maintain that kind of sweet spot of masculinity. So I'll say what I'm feeling, maybe a couple highlights, because I want to honor my reality. So there's that trust of my energy, my, my body language, my words, my eyes, like all the sensory acuity. Kids, animals, women, and I think unfortunately for men, most of us are least sensitive to these things, but they know like something's off and I'm fine. Well, now you're lying to me. So now that's a whole nother level of trust that's got to be worked on because I know something's off, honey. And so I think that's like, there's a lot of nuances there, but it's like, be seen and heard and share with men if you have them. And if you can lead that, think that's how we can start changing the world, man. Because a lot of us are, it's too scary, I think, to start. We don't know where to start.
I think fear is huge for men when it comes to
Mm,
vulnerability because of the dynamics around what we've been taught to just be strong. Men don't cry. If you cry, you're weak or you're gay, or all the
mm,
nonsense. And
yeah.
when we're in community with other men who have been taught those same things and we're different, we're ostracized or picked on or bullied or whatever have you. And then we learn that it's not safe to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
which create and cause
or chaos. I'm okay with that.
so much more internal conflict, because now when we have a feeling that organically comes, we have to suppress that. And so suppressing that could cause confusion, and that confusion can just leave us just fragmented.
I appreciate you saying that. It's I think there is a very important piece here when I think about um men that are kind of like boys trapped in older bodies, because no shame or blame. It's
Mhm,
just most of us, like you said, we're not taught this. We're taught the opposite. And then that creates more damage for kids, for the women in our lives, for the men in our lives, because that's when you have those reactions, those bursts, that very unhealthy things where you're like, I didn't want to do it. And then you talk about it and then you apologize. And sometimes you can't come back from those things. Or they're
mhm,
just such long habits. It does like corrosion to the relationships. And I feel like to this point, to be able to share, it's like soul food, man. It's like going out in the sun or coming up from drowning and you're like, oh my gosh, like I can do this safely. Like it is
mhm,
so beautiful. It's hard to really put into words, man. It's so nourishing. So I really agree with what you just said. I think it's very important.
it's like a language that you learn to speak, and
Mm.
the more fluent you get in it, the less you're able to communicate with those who don't know it, aren't familiar with it, and don't want to learn it, which then can also be very lonely, because now you're starting to separate from your boys, your crew, because you almost don't fit in anymore. It's like, if you're riding in the car with your friends and they're going to go do something wrong, you get that feeling like, I can't do this anymore. Whereas before, it may have been something that you would have, you know, just been a part of, but now you get that prick that just says, hey, this isn't us anymore. And vulnerability could be similar to that type of shift, to where you now no longer have those same desires or same needs or wants as the people who aren't doing the work.
I spoke to my soul, man. Amen. I mean, I'm assuming you're sharing that probably because that's a part of your journey, right?
Sure.
Because you understand it.
Hmm.
Huh. I got to share this just like in real time for us and for anyone listening is what just happened in my nervous system, what happened in my body. Like you just did it. You opened up more vulnerability. And it's like that part of us, whatever's left of us in the world that's like feels disconnected or yearning for something more in life. I mean, you literally just did it into a level of relaxation I didn't even know could have been there in the moment. It's like, yeah, dude, cool. That part of me is not alone in this moment. It's,
Hmm.
yeah, I feel you. It literally just happened. We just did it right there. Um, because I have a lot of empathy for that, man. A lot. I've lost a lot of friends. Um, like that lone wolf stage people talk about,
Hmm.
and it's all that is true. And I think it's not inherently bad and it's actually quite good, but it typically is inherently uncomfortable. And then when we meet other people like us, it's almost like you're like the black sheep or whatever, or the green bird amongst a bunch of, wipers, whatever it is. And you're just like, I don't know, like you're like a toucan amongst a bunch of crows. You're like, I don't know. Or like, Einstein famously said, what is it? If you try to tell a fish to climb a tree, well, believe it's broken its whole life, something like that.
Mm.
And I feel you, man. That's why instantly I connected with you, because that's so true. And I don't know. I think it's for like whether it's the hero's journey or growing. I have a belief. I think that we all have to go through that in a way. I don't know if that's avoidable, honestly, when you start walking the personal growth journey.
I
I
don't
think it's
think it is.
inevitable. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it is
Yeah.
because you're on a different path now,
Yeah.
and that I think the path starts close to your other path, and then it starts to widen, so you can still see the other people on the other path, but the further you go, the more distance you create. And I don't think that it's any love loss. You just are becoming a different person, and so you
Yeah.
have to learn how to categorize, I guess, each relationship or friendship based on your new energetic, physical, emotional boundaries in order for you to stay safe as you're evolving.
Yes. Yeah, I very much agree with that. And I think they're all very good things, to your point. It's all very good. It can be uncomfortable, and I
Mhm.
think as we do it more, like I don't really have a lot of discomfort with it anymore, honestly. I accept that it's just a part of, living and changing. And what's really cool too is, kind of taking that all the way back on itself. My oldest friend from childhood, my longest life friend, I've known him for 33 or 32 years. He and his wife and I and their two beautiful girls reconnected last year, and I'll be going to see them again in a few weeks in my hometown. They still live there. And I think there's like a cool paradox here where everything we said standing true, there are some of those gems that don't have to be there, but they might. It's like our filter gets so much more optimized and it's constantly changing that not only are they better for us, but then we're attracting people that we're better for. And
Mhm.
whatever people have been in our past, I feel like it just kind of filters out, not right or wrong, just what resonates. And so for me, it's cool that I'm still actually closer now with my oldest friend, despite how much I've changed and seeing how they've changed. And that's kind of cool too. So different nuances of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool for sure.
Yeah.
Um, to go a little bit deeper into your journey, you've talked about hitting rock bottom, and
Mm.
it doesn't seem like that's where your story ends, but kind of where it begins. So I wanted you to take us back to that moment, that version of you that was at his lowest, and what began to shift.
Another great question. Probably the most vulnerable of the podcast today, and I'm happy to answer it. So the darkest moment for me, um, kind of, I don't know how much more intense you can get in darkness, but I think of how much detail to share. Essentially, okay. Essentially, I had chased women, things, money, status, heavy partying when I was younger, went through anxiety, some panic attacks in corporate. I was a sales engineer. I traveled a lot and had two panic attacks. One, I had to call 911 at a hotel in Arizona because my panic attack, I almost stopped breathing. So like, I never knew what that was. I'm like, I had legit panic attacks. And these things have been building, anxiety and, depression, antidepressants. I'd had this, just a lot of suffering and confusion. And when I hit rock bottom was when I almost took my life. It was wild as I say this with really no discomfort. For all these years, it's one of my greatest gifts. But I was so lost, and whether I can go into like the science of neuroplasticity and parts of the brain and subconscious mind and all that stuff and the nervous system. But to keep it more simple, it's like my mental suffering my emotional suffering. As a soul, as a consciousness, I was so disconnected and lost in all the elements of living. I was so lost. My rock bottom was that moment of, I can't do this anymore. I've tried a lot. I tried a lot more since then, but I tried a lot. And I was like, if this is how my life's going to continue, I'm a good person. I really feel I'm a good person. I have a good heart, good intentions, but why am I suffering? I'm so sad and stressed and insecure and lost. Like, this can't be life.
Hmm.
And I mean, this might make people uncomfortable, but I mean, literally had the noose around my neck. Like, it was a dark moment, man. I don't know if you can get much darker than that. And it was just like something clicked. I've heard people talk about this. So I never actually attempted. And that was just that one time. It wasn't like a, like a pattern, but it was brutal. And I've been so lost where I was like, this is my way out. I can't do it anymore. I'm gonna quit. And that moment where, I had that rope around my neck and a whole plan, and it was so dark and scary and wild. It was like that part of you kicks in where it was like, if I was up on a chair, I'm like, if I trip, if I fall, I'm gone. And it was like all these things flash through your mind. People talk about that, like your family and all these things and your past and your future. And then it kind of felt like God, universe, angels, higher self, something just came in very strong. And it was like, your story's not done. You can't do this. Take it off. And it was more like I was saying that to it's hard to explain, but it was powerful. And it was just like a shift. And I was like, what am I doing? Whoa. And I kind of like freaked myself out, like, how did I get here? And so, whew, um, that was my rock bottom, um, where I just didn't want to live. And so what I live now, what I teach, what I believe, what I do, what I embody to the best of my ability is I've been, whether it's chronic leukemia, cancer diagnosis that I have to take chemo every day for 14 years, whether it's almost ending my life, whether it's basically being lost in anxiety, depression, and panic for many, many years. Um, that's why I say it's trial by fire. Like, I really have lived what I teach, and almost like, Batman coming out of the depths of the dungeons or something. Like, uh, it means a lot to me. It's almost sacred. It's not theory. It's, I know not what someone's going through. I will never know that, but the principles and the way those things can work, and just being lost in that swamp and feeling there's no way out. I know that. And I know what it's like to get out of that and to be able to stay out of that, which I didn't believe was possible in those moments. And so, whether it's physical health, cancer, almost ending my life, I say that almost with a level of silliness, because it's just like, whoa, that's so wild. That's so beyond, it's hard to even fathom that now. But that was part of my authentic story. And I think it's one of my greatest gifts. And maybe I'll finish with this is, someone who's, really big in the healing industry said that they believe, about when they were actually being interviewed. And he said, I believe that I'm able to bring the best out of others because I have been to the darkest depths of myself or life. And I'm totally paraphrasing. He said it way better. Um, but when I saw that, I just started, crying. I was like, I felt so seen, or I saw him. I'm like, yes, I feel like I've been to hell and back in this life. And I believe that's what drives me, even if not professionally, just with people. Like, I believe one of my greatest purposes in this life is to see people. Um, and I like to say, to grow flowers in the darkest parts of people, I believe is why I'm on this earth. Um, there's no way I could do that if I hadn't been through all that. So, yeah, man, it's been a journey.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dustin.
Yeah.
That was deeply, deeply personal, dark, vulnerable, all the things. And for you to be able to be in that place, come out of it, and now be using that to, as you said, help others grow flowers in their darkest spots is phenomenal. Um, I do believe that you are here to help people, and you're doing that, and I'm grateful that you're still here.
Thank you.
If you had to sit across from that version of you that was standing on a chair with the rope around his neck and was just in a very dark place, felt like there was no way out, what would you say?
First thing that comes to mind, maybe to heart, is you don't see it yet, but I promise you, you will see that your greatest pain, your greatest suffering, your greatest confusion will eventually become your greatest superpowers. That will happen. Just have faith. If I would have known that and actually believed it, um, I don't think I ever would have gotten that low. That's the first thing that comes up.
I don't know that it's possible to see it in those moments. Um, but
Yeah.
of course, hindsight is 2020. So now, and sometimes I struggle with the concept of having to go through something so difficult to get to a better place. But also, how can you know how wonderful the other side of healing is if you haven't been to the dark side of healing or the dark side of pain? And I don't know. I grasp it from an intellectual concept, like my cells understand it, but there's a part of me that's like, it's not fair. You know what I mean?
Mm. Okay. hmm Anything else you want to share there, or is that it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There's a lot I could say on that. So I have a lot of empathy for that. Um, and it's interesting. Just yesterday, I was talking about this with somebody close to me. I believe that that is a totally understandable thing to experience. And I'll just speak personally for me. There are moments, it gets briefer and briefer as time goes on, that I don't tend to go there anymore. Um, and there is understandable human validity to what you're saying. I mean, like, I respect that. That's like pretty understandable. Like, dude, come on. Like, what? Um, and that was actually one of the greatest gifts I got from Presence Process, honestly, um, was an organic shifting uh, of it's all happening. I think I said this to you already. It's all happening, to me, for me, not to me.
Mm.
Um, and so, yeah, I feel like it's a liberating superpower that the more we unconditionally feel that stuff, I think that the word fair just becomes less important,
Mm.
honestly. But I respect you sharing that. I think that's spent a lot of time in that place, and I think it's a reasonable, not reasonable, but I think it's understandable to have that. I think we become quite free when we shift to a different perspective.
I think it's a privilege to be able to have this conversation and talk about being on the other side, you know? But then I think about like my lineage and I think about like my great 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 grandparents, like how would they ever come to terms with slavery or,
Okay.
you know, other individuals who have suffered great atrocities, genocide and things of that nature. Um and then when I try and think about it from a perspective of wholeness, it may be more of a generational cycle being broken. Um, so I can see it from that perspective, but I guess I always try to put myself in the shoes of the person who's suffering the most and may not be able to sit and have a conversation about what it was like to be in pain because their entire timeline is pain.
Okay. That's a really good point, man. And I've had some of these conversations, like when you zoom out that high, and you're like, okay,
Mm,
what about slavery? What about the Holocaust? What about
right.
genocide? How do you explain that?
Mm,
And I think that's above my um my human or spiritual pay grade to be able to give, I think, a really, really good answer to something that big. When I chunk it down, for me, it's honestly the first thing that comes up is when I do. Have you heard of Ho'oponopono? Did we ever talk about that? Are you
no.
familiar with it? No. Um, so I've studied Hawaiian, a lot of cultures, but Hawaiian, it's an ancient technique from them, and it's become modernized. Um, it's a there's self forgiveness or forgiveness of others, and they don't even have to be alive to forgive them. And so it's meditative, visualizing, energetic releasing of anything that's kind of poisoning us or heavy in our hearts and souls. And when I've done that a lot with clients and myself, and one of the biggest things that has come up, and actually a friend of ours, we have actually spoken about this more than once. Of most people are like, well, I don't want to forgive because that means condoning, and it's like, yeah, okay, so really good point. Condoning, absolutely not. Forgiveness, by definition, is not that. And if someone really believes that, though, then we get caught up on the word and we have to kind of shift. You don't have to use the word forgive. But I think maybe as best as I could honor what you just said is it's not condonement and that high up, again, above my pay grade of knowledge and whatever wisdom I do have. But on a person to person basis and as best we can, I may not understand it all, but as if I can at least release any anger, resentment, any of that stuff attached to it, at least I'm free within me and I've done the best I can for myself and my lineage. Maybe we'll never understand that in our lifetime, but to me, that's, I think, the best I can honor your statement because that's a very valid statement within our own agency. So yeah,
I appreciate that. And I mean I do understand that it does, you know, take a lot in order to try and get to that understanding because it may not be something that we can even grasp or feel in our bodies, so to speak.
yeah, yeah.
But speaking about feeling,
Mm,
so many people do live in a constant state of anxiety and self-doubt without realizing that they may be stuck in survival mode because of what's happening in their body.
mm.
And because you do this work, I wanted to know if you could break down what's really happening in the body and the nervous system when somebody is in that place.
Yeah. So there's several big elements, and a lot of people have heard a lot of people talk about, the nervous system, the two different parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Then you also have the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind. And then in the body, whether you want to go more, well, the nervous system is tied to hormones, but like, the HPA axis, the different parts of the brain, the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, you have all those things. But without getting super nerdy on it all, the way that I like to summarize it to people is that you know, um, your hormones are very important. I have hypothyroidism. And if you do all this, self-development work for years and years and years, and your hormones are really out of whack, you're really running uphill. So I like to start before even kind of my specialty is I work with naturopathic doctors, and I say, just get your blood work done. I want to honor what I even don't know and just see what's going on hormonally. Let's get that evaluated. Once that's understood, then I go to the nervous system and the subconscious mind. And so I always tell people this. So there's 4 requirements for change. Hopefully it'll tie into this question. If you study everyone who's had lasting good change, there's 4 things that are required in this specific order. You have to get rid of the baggage mentally and emotionally. You have to put in things to your subconscious, shifting your state, your nervous system. You have to put good things into your system. You have to take action, and you have to stay focused on what you want, not what you don't want, which is what most of us do. For example, the subconscious mind doesn't understand, negatives. Say, don't think of an elephant. Well, of course, I'm thinking of an elephant. So with those 4 things, the way that I tell people this, I say, look, first, we have to change your state. We have to, get rid of your baggage. We have to, change your state hormonally, chemically. And that's why I bring in a lot of habits, cold plunging, sauna, breath work, ways to even stimulate your spinal fluid and your pineal gland, lifting weights, all these things that are scientifically proven to be beneficial, whether it shifts your hormones, whether it shifts your blood pressure, whether it shifts your heart rate, whether it shifts, all these different things, puts you out of fight or flight. There's all these things we can do. And so I focus on the subconscious mind and the nervous system, whether it's, through habits, every single day, every single night, or doing all the release work I do, or then putting good things in hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming, um, dynamic duo hypnosis, which can be more efficacious to people where their minds are so fast and they like control so much and they're so resistant and they're such achievers. Doing nothing and letting go is like the scariest thing. And so that's a way we have 2 voices to help distract the conscious mind so we can penetrate into the subconscious even more. We're also working with kids with that and stuff too. So, so I think if I threw a lot at you, if I summarize it, it's either a technique to shift your state, cold plunge, breath work, all different things. It's release work to let out the energy, the emotions, the limiting beliefs, or the trapped gunk in our system. And then it's using tools to put things into our subconscious to reprogram us. And then we take the action, and then we stay focused. That's how we really change. So when it comes to stress, anxiety, all these things, maybe I can zoom out one last level. As I like to tell people this, when we go to our ancestors, again, a lot of people talk about this. This isn't new, of the saber-toothed tiger and fight or flight and all that stuff. Fight, flight, freeze. People even adding a 4th, level there. But it's essentially the way we live before tech, before phones, before internet. We would have that and it would go away. As our species has aged, as technology has increased, we're constantly exposed to lions and saber-toothed tigers everywhere around us and within us, because so much baggage has been stored. We get triggered all the time and we don't know why. It's in our subconscious and it's tied to our nervous system. But then also we're exposed externally, all the data coming in through our 5 senses, the news, war, genocide, earthquakes, this, pings on our phones, social media, stress, comparing to others. It's wild. Like our outdated hardware wasn't meant for all this, and it's rapidly increased. And so I think trying to bring it all together is, it's not a surprise that most of us are constantly stressed and freaking out and wondering why we can't calm down and like enjoy life. And so those are all the different elements without going really nerdy into the details of all the different parts of the body. So yeah, hope that makes sense.
Of course it does. I want to talk about safety a bit and
Mm,
what safety actually is,
okay.
especially as it relates to masculinity. And I wanted to ask, what did learning about the nervous system do for you in your healing journey? And how did you learn and experience safety?
So that's really good questions, man. Um, I love how you tie the questions more general back into the speaker. I think it brings a lot of heart to the conversation. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Um, a lot of relevancy for the listeners. Um, so, Phew. Well, first thing I would say is safety for me is tying a lot of the things that we've spoken about today. Is when I feel safe, it's because I feel either okay in my vessel, um, or the discomfort that I feel while being alive in this vessel, it doesn't overwhelm me. And so I would say, I'll give you another quick story. I told a lot of this to clients, and I'd like to say it's kind of fun because it kind of trips people out usually, but I think it makes a cool point. Is for me, and I'll actually tie it to me, personally, of like why I just had a desperation, I had to learn all this stuff because I was just like, why is my heart racing? Why am I so socially anxious? Why do I feel broken? I feel like just like horrible inside, and I really believe there's a way to live and not be in that. Like, there's got to be a way to live and not be like that all the time. This is just not how I believe we're meant to live. There's got to be something more.
Mm.
And so I like to say this analogy about a van. My inner nerd just loves doing this. So I tell this to clients. So, and also respect to Michael Singer, kind of famous for the untethered soul and witness consciousness, which is a big, part of what I do. And I say this, so I kind of created this from his teachings, myself. It just kind of hit me one day where it's like, okay, for most people, and especially for me, I'll speak about me. It was like I was stuck in this van with 7 crazy children that were like Hellraiser kids in a van. I didn't know where it was going, and rarely did I ever drive. I didn't like the van. It was uncomfortable. And all these 7 kids drove me crazy, and I had like no control. So here's the metaphor. The van is our body, my body. I'll say, again, speak for me. And here's the 7 kids. It's the 5 senses of our body: sight, hearing, taste, touch, and sense of touch. It is the emotions in our body that we feel, and then it's our thoughts. And I was such a lost, like, they would be driving, they would be leading my life, they would be reacting in my life, they would be running, chasing, doing all these things. And I was like in this van, so disempowered, so anxious, whether, oh my God, I saw something and now that kid's driving the car, freaking out, doesn't know where it's going, reacting to this. I'm overwhelmed. It was just horrible. And so I learned then how to engage with my body, the van, the 5 senses, 5 of the kids, my thoughts and my feelings are like, wait a minute, this is my kingdom inside. This is my world. Let's work together. You have a lot of pain. You have a lot of confusion. Let me be your father and mother as best I can within my enclosed system. I'm going to take the wheel and let's figure this out together. You're not the enemy, and none of us can leave the van. And then actually turn into, I'm blessed that we're all here because I can see, I can hear, I can taste, I can touch, I can interact. And they became more positive. So for me, does that make sense though? I mean, I love kind of tripping people out.
You just described the model internal family systems to the T.
Okay.
To the T.
Okay.
So yes, it makes perfect sense. And I've talked about IFS so much in my podcast. I hope that
Right
any
on.
listeners, would be able to grab onto that and be like, "Oh, I know what he's talking about." So yes, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. So like there you go. Like it's it was a game changer for, you know, feeling safe of when I started to become friends with all that, even if it was uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. To me, that's peace and safety because it's like I am one with my system. And now I feel more safe within me alone or with others. And then I feel more safe in how I'm treating others because that's important to me. And if I don't feel that I'm regulated and like have some level of peace authentically, then I'm not going to feel as safe in how I interact with the world, if that makes sense. So to me, that's kind of putting all that together, how I felt a really amazing sense of safety for me. And I think to honor maybe the other part of your question is all these tools I was so desperate to feel that sense of safety and peace inside that through my habits, I cold plunge every day, I sauna almost every night, I do all these things, Ho'oponopono, I visualize what I want in life, I do priming, I have all these tools and techniques. Something comes up, I feel it, I allow myself to experience it and release it. I really live all these things. And with that, from sheer desperation, like grasping at straws of, come on, like there's got to be something better. It's whoa, this has really helped me. Wow, like, and it's real. I can feel it. It's not just putting on a front and kind of fake it till you make it. It's like it's there. Okay, I feel safe, and this is really cool. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for that personalized description of what safety is for you. Because I think a lot of people can relate to it, especially the van. That that van thing is gonna go viral.
Yeah, dude. I'm glad you like that. I feel like it's why most of us take meds or get stuff, and we're always trying to do these things to feel better in the van. And it's like, well, let's flip it, man.
Mm,
Become friends with those 7 kids. They're not here to make your life horrible. They just need help.
yeah,
So,
so true. And I think
yeah.
what you described was the opposite of suppression. But you do talk a lot about emotional suppression and how that can lead to addiction, overfunctioning, and self betrayal.
Mm.
So, how can people start learning to feel their feelings instead of fearing them?
That's a very good question. So it depends on the person's capacity. Um, I think I usually start with that van analogy when I work with clients because I feel that's one of the best ways to start is I take them through like an eyes closed experience of we close our eyes and we do some breathing. And then I take them one by one through those 7 kids. And I just say, again, got to give some credit to Michael Singer. I say, imagine, closing your eyes. Imagine that you were blind. You couldn't see. And so one by one, I have them try to imagine turning off each of those 7 kids that can cause so much chaos and discomfort. And I feel like until we've done some level of that based on everyone's own beliefs and, different perspectives, I really feel like that's how we start of you are not your thoughts. Most thoughts are not even true. And it's a way your mind's trying to protect you from danger. But most of them aren't even true. Most of us are so clogged up and confused that I am my thoughts. I am my feelings. I am my body. Fun little thing. So maybe this will answer the question. So I ask people this. I say, okay, close your eyes and breathe. Are you actually wanting to maybe do this with me right now?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. So please close your eyes. I'll actually close my eyes for this part. Let's take a deep breath in together through our nose for 4 seconds. Hold it for 7. We'll exhale slowly for 8. For the sake of time, let's just do one more. 4 in. Hold. Relaxing the shoulders and everything. Just chilling out as best as suits you. Exhaling for 8. Okay. So the first question is this. Very simple question, and please give me the first answer that arises is, who are you? That is the question. Please tell me whatever your answer is. Who are you?
Shalon.
Okay. Does anything else come up? Or is
Mm-mm.
that it? Okay, good.
Okay.
So now, with your eyes closed still, so I'll try to speed up this process. Just a quick honoring of your time and your podcast. Are you willing to spend about 5 minutes on this? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So with your eyes closed, imagine that either you were born blind, or, I mean, just for the moment, as unfortunate or uncomfortable as that might be, just you're temporarily blind. Okay. So imagine you can't see for the next, hour, whatever it is, even if you wanted to. And so just a level of awareness on, we're very visual creatures. Most of the data we take in is through, the eyes. But imagine you can't see. So much of what we either desire, whether it's sexually or a nice car or a painting or things that make us upset, is simply because the data is coming in through your eyes. But imagine if you couldn't see. The benefits and like the pros and cons of that wouldn't even be there. So you're not what you take in through your eyes. You're not what you see. And you can keep your eyes closed for this. Most people typically do. It's just more relaxing. Let's go to your ears. So whether you want to cover your ears or simply imagine if you had, some headphones and you couldn't really hear around you, imagine if you couldn't hear. It could be quite uncomfortable. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't see, I can't hear. Oh, this is kind of weird. Allow yourself to settle in, even if that's not there, and just, okay, well, if I couldn't hear and I couldn't see, I'd still be alive. I'd still, be me, but I wouldn't have those. You can take it further. You'll probably see where this is going. Even COVID, people couldn't, smell or taste. Kind of weird, but it can happen. So as best you can imagine, well, what if I couldn't, like, okay, kind of gets weirder, a little stranger, but I couldn't do those. And then imagine whether it was from some situation or even modern medicine, I wouldn't even be able to feel touch on my body. Okay, this can be kind of really strange for people, but it can be very liberating because you're like thinking about it. Okay. My eyes closed. This guy Dustin is telling me all these weird hypotheticals, but let me just settle in with it. I couldn't see, if I couldn't hear, if I couldn't taste, if I couldn't smell, and if I couldn't feel, like, through the sense of touch. That's a lot, but let's go even further if we can. Imagine now your emotions have been numbed, whether it's due to medication or another reason. You're still alive. You're still able to be alive and exist. But now you don't have that. And then imagine your thoughts. Your thoughts come and go. We can either consciously shift our thoughts, whether we kind of hear it, feel it, or even see it, know it in our mind. I say, think of a boat. You can visualize it. Think of a yacht. Think of a cruise liner. It shifts. You can see that in your mind's eye with your eyes closed. So you don't even have to have your eyes open to see things. But these are all just thoughts. You might have an unconscious thought or a conscious thought, like me saying, think of a boat. Or you saying to yourself, I need to think of a boat, whatever it is. So one of my main points here is I just want you to consider, now let all that go, okay? And you're in your body. And now this part, kind of just could be strange for people, and please forgive me if it brings up any discomfort, but it's just, temporary and hypothetical. But imagine, there are certain people that they've lost a limb or they, different things. You can lose a lot of your body, as weird or grotesque as that may be. But just imagine, I can lose a lot of my body too, but I'm still alive and I'm still here. So now let's just take a deep breath, let all that weird stuff go. Take a deep breath in and let it go. Okay, strange exercise done, but let's keep our eyes closed and go a little bit further before we finish. So I asked you who you are. You said Jalon. Now gone through the five senses. We've gone through the emotions. We've gone through the thoughts of the mind. Kind of within the five senses, really the body itself. So kind of, 7 or 8 children, depending on how you want to look at it. But that's all there. But they can come and go or be lost permanently. And you are still here alive. Even further, when you're dreaming, how do you even know you had a dream or didn't dream? You're sleeping, for goodness sakes. But something at your core knows and is aware even when you're sleeping. So here's my last question before we wrap up. Here's it. Not who are you, because even your name was given to you, and that can change. But what are you? What comes up when I ask that? What are you?
Spiritual being.
Wonderful. And if you want to answer this last one, what are you not? Does anything come up there?
My body.
Okay. Thank you. You can open your eyes. So with that exercise, I think I'll leave your question with my answer here is I like to start there, because when we can start there and we realize we're not inherently any of those things, I believe it's a healthy level of separation from all those things to be able to have some level of confidence and grounding in the seed of ourself, to be able to start feeling more of those different things with a heightened level of lack of conditions unconditionally. And it starts to build that muscle. We keep coming back. Whoa, okay, no, oh, wait, I'm not that. Oh, most of my thoughts aren't even true. Oh, the feelings are so uncomfortable. Wait, but they're not permanent. Okay, and they're not me. Wait a minute. Okay, I can do this. And so I think that starts a level of awareness and confidence to start this journey. So, yeah.
That was awesome. Um, Basically shedding everything that I'm not gave me a completely different perspective of who I am or what I am. Um, and if that's my baseline, it's true. Like the same way I could shed hearing or shed seeing, even if it's just for practical reasons, I could do that with thoughts or feelings or anything uncomfortable. Okay, that's not me.
Yeah,
You separate from it. Mm. I hope that's
exactly. And
helpful to a lot of people.
it's been one of my greatest gifts, man. I think it's to safety. It gets to either a woman being healthy in her feminine, a man being healthy in his masculinity, to being a real, like, mature adult, to have core strength, to know who you
Mm.
are and what you're not. And then when life happens and stress and all these things that aren't what we want, we're like, well, wait a minute. None of this is inherently me. And then we're able to more quickly be like, wait a minute. This isn't really happening to me. It's happening for me, even if I can't understand it yet. Well, let me just feel it, respond accordingly. Is if someone's going to come up and punch me, it's okay to defend myself and respond. It doesn't mean I just sit there and take it. Like,
Mm.
it's not that, but it's just you respond, and it's really liberating, man. It's very empowering. Yeah. So
I feel like I'm going to be answering those questions in different variations for so long now because I'm like, oh, I could have said this, I could have said that, and then that's that practice. I think it'll stay with me. So
right on,
thanks
man.
for that. Thanks for
You're welcome.
that. All right, where were we?
Yeah.
um, One of the biggest lies, or what's one of the biggest lies you see people believing about their pain or their past? I think that's a perfect question for what we just did.
I was like, that was a perfect segue. Yeah, because that's what I tell people is the biggest confusion and misconception is identifying with things that are literally not who or what we are. And I think I'll add one cool spiritual element to this. Have you ever heard of how they've weighed, like, the actual, physical weight of a body before and after someone dies. Have you ever heard of those? Of that?
Mm-mm.
There's actually a statistically significant amount of weight that leaves the body when a person dies, and if you believe this, the soul or spirit leaves the body. So it's actually measurable by science.
Wow.
And it's yeah, there's so many ways I can go. I always like to respect everyone's belief systems, but
I
so I
felt
kind of
that.
try to keep it a little bit, honed in. But whatever you do believe, I think it's interesting, to whatever conclusion you draw from that. That, at least from my belief, it's very aligned with this. Like,
Mm.
whoa, like, yeah, I'm not all this, stuff. And if that's empowering to you, run with it. If it's not, that's okay. And so I think that's the biggest misconception of, this is all me and I'm lost in it all. And it's like, nah, man, you're so not. You're so not. And then when we learn how to be the parent to those 7 kids in our own system, then we're able to be a good friend, a son, a parent, a lover to those around us. And it's authentic. And so, yeah, that's what I'd say.
Some of the things that happen to us because of the things we go through is that we develop wounds, attachment wounds. What are some of the ways that our attachment wounds can show up in our relationships, whether they be romantic or platonic,
Uh,
and or if someone has never seen love modeled in a healthy way?
mm, that's maybe actually one of your funniest questions. Okay, so I have to reference the presence process again and give credit
Sure.
to that guy, because this is where it clicked for me. My answer to that question is, we've heard it. I've experienced it in my life. Or like, I keep it, like, you keep on dating and attracting the same intimate partner again and again. They just have a different name and a different
Mhm.
body. And so what I have come to believe is that we have a conscious definition of love and an unconscious definition of love. And the conscious definition of love is, great sex, roses, wine, vacations, the perfect family, the land, the grass, whatever that is for us. And it's all positive and it's all like, yay. And we have that romantic phase for 6 months. And then most of us can't hold it because it's hard to hold. And we go then into the subconscious. And then that's when the relationship really begins. And so, more to your question, uh, is unconsciously, when we're children, and this can even start in the womb, um, is we start to learn based on what, even if it wasn't our parents, biological, not aunts, uncles, even older siblings, it can be anything where we are in that little sensitive space, super malleable. Our subconscious is like a sponge taking everything in. Um, and we see what we think, love is. And even if it's abuse, even if it's yelling, even if it's running, even if it's withholding love, even all those things, we subconsciously, oh, that's love, even if it makes no sense, and we learn logically later that that's bad. In a sense, it's not healthy. Like, that's not healthy, nourishing love. And then we're like, well, why do I keep attracting it? Why do I keep falling into it when I know I shouldn't, but it feels good or familiar in some weird way? So my answer would be, we get unconscious, unhealthy definitions of love for most of us. I think very few of us are lucky enough to um, have a really good role model. Um, but to the best of my knowledge of this, work, like, that's where that happens, and why there's that disconnect of what I logically, consciously understand healthy love to be, and why I'm not attracting or manifesting or enjoying that. Um, and then I take it a step further to say, this is where I love working with the subconscious mind. Is, our core values rule most of what we do. And you can work with that in the subconscious mind, and whether that means of things that I I believe, I want to have, I believe are true about the world or about relationships. If we start working on that, whether it's feeling unconditionally through presence process or things that I shared, or doing healing work, releasing, working with those emotions, knowing none of it's inherently me, you start to shift that subconscious part of you, align it with your conscious mind. And I think that's how we break generational baggage, to where then I am actually conscious and deeply within, aligned with what love I believe love to be. And I let go of that programming. And that's where we start to, I think, have healthy relationships, platonically or intimately. And we get that shift because most of us learn very unempowering programming as to what that is. And I think it causes a lot of damage.
What does love look like for you now, since you've done so much work around
Ah,
wholeness and emotional
yeah.
safety?
Ooh, yeah, you got some good questions. That's a really good question. So many ways to answer that, man. Um, I would say love is facing and embracing those 7 children within me to the point where I've seen myself, I've heard myself, I've authentically loved the darkest parts of me and put those flowers in the darkest parts of me authentically. And with that, then I believe love is being in that frequency where I can connect with others and do the same for them and they do the same for me. I believe, to me, that's love. Is essentially, if I was to take that up a notch and simplify it, it's love with others is based on self-love, which is based off of seeing, feeling, embracing, experiencing unconditionally all of me. And then that liberates me to get the nourishment of love. And I think that's where souls and beings, there's a level of selflessness. There's a level of seeing and feeling that nourishes the soul in a way that doing or having or manipulating or trying or forcing like will never get you there. There's a flow to it. There's a connection of everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And it's that reciprocation that's like food being tossed back and forth to people. It doesn't have to be intimate, but to me, that's love. Does that make sense? I don't think I've ever said it like that. That's kind of funny, but hopefully that makes sense.
It makes sense, bro.
Right on.
The depth of your knowledge is so ridiculous, and I don't know if you recognize it because you're just you and you do this every day, but I haven't been a part of your journey, but where you are now and from the darkness that you described you are at the total opposite end of the spectrum. And I keep hearing you reference other people, and I feel like at a certain point people are going to be referencing you because you're you're doing the work. You've done a lot of work, and it shows. It shows tremendously. I'm grateful to have you here.
I could almost tear up. Thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot.
And I mean, it's funny when we first met him, we might as well tell the joke. We hit it off so much in like 15 minutes. We were talking about like buying an apartment and moving together. And
All right,
that's
down
never
payment
happened for
ready.
me, bro.
Not apartment. We're gonna get a mortgage, dude. 20% down, man. No insurance. Let's do it. Oh
It's so
yeah. Yep.
refreshing to connect with someone who has, been in a dark place and put those flowers in that dark place, and now their work, their spirit, everything about who they are and their journey resonates in a way that it's palpable. And like I said, I'm just grateful to have you here. I mean, we got some more questions, but I didn't want to pass that up.
Right on, man.
So for other men who are wanting to do this work and to have healthy masculinity, and maybe who didn't have a secure attachment growing up, or an emotionally available father, what does it look like for them to be a dad that is emotionally available, or a husband that is emotionally available, if those things were never modeled to them?
A very good question. Yeah. So to me, it gets back to a similar principle where it's, one of the tenets of neurolinguistic programming is to model successful behavior. And so I think it's finding other men that have been through this journey is a great starting point, whether it's to be a friend with them, having them as a mentor, coach, a therapist, whatever it is. But but at the end of the day, I really firmly believe it's about facing our own stuff. And parts of that can be very quick and don't have to be painful, and some parts can be wildly uncomfortable. And none of that's inherently bad. And so I feel like seek out other men and see if it like really check in, because there are men like that for me are wildly successful and big names and not right or wrong. Just for me and my frequency, I'm like, I don't know why. I don't really want to learn from them, and that's okay. So I seek other men, and I resonate more with them. And I feel like just because you haven't been taught it, just because it hasn't been modeled, it absolutely is no bearing on how much you can attain it. Absolutely, it's like no correlation. It just means you might have to start later and it might be a little more difficult. And that's totally fine because you'll probably be even stronger for it. So uh, I could reference, books and authors, but I think hopefully that answers your question.
Yes. I got one more.
Okay.
Surrounding men and masculinity,
Mm.
and some advice for those who may be listening to this or just want to start on their journey, because I think a lot of us carry pain, fear, shame, loneliness, and we don't feel safe expressing it. And there's a cost to that silence. So what happens when men finally start to give themselves permission to feel, and how can they go about giving themselves that permission?
Wow, that is a very good question. So there's various ways I can start to answer that. The first thing that comes up is, do you ever hear that it's become quite famous in personal development? The what is it? Roger Bannister, the guy who was the first one to run a sub 4 minute mile,
Mhm.
where no one had ever done it. And within a year, I wouldn't quote me, but I think it was within a year, globally, like 20,000 people did it. So I think part of my answer to your question is, as a man, especially because we're more wired to protect and defend, and in certain ways, be more maybe skeptical of things, depending on the topic. But um, to me, I needed to see it in another man. That was my journey. It doesn't have to be, but I was like, I needed to believe. Like, is this really possible? Like, is there a man that I look up to that's done this, where I actually believe that this journey somewhat resembles a man I would like to be? And to me, it was, eh, you know, um, just my personal thing. It was like I went on one side and saw these big, strong, hardcore men. I thought that was a man, and then I realized, well, there's a lot of guys that aren't really men. And then I went the whole other, like very kind of woo woo yoga And it was it was like super sensitive, and it was quite the opposite. And for me to get like a lot of momentum of like, I think I can do this. It was like a guy who was kind of fit enough, and again, not right or wrong, just what word for me. And I was like, he's kind of strong enough, but then he's like real, and I feel he's authentic, and I feel like I can trust him, and I feel like that is like I do want to do that, and it's not super sensitive, it's not weak, it's not lame, it's not like, oh, okay, woo woo, all this emotional stuff that's like for women. This guy like takes care of himself. I respect that, and that takes discipline. And to me, I had to see it somewhere, believe it was there. So for men that are either skeptical or haven't, done it, or come from a world where it's like maybe they have a little hope and they're like, oh, that something resonates, but no one will respect me if I do that. They'll think I'm weak. All that stuff can come up. And I feel like if you're uncomfortable enough, whether for yourself or for those you love, this is possible. There's many men that have done this and are actively living this way. If you have a desire, it's very possible. Seek someone out that you want to model as best you can. Allow some vulnerability with the faith that it will give you rewards far beyond your wildest dreams. Another quote I love is, "The jewels we seek are in the cave we fear to enter." I think that was Bob Proctor who said that. So true. And so for men, maybe I can try to be a little more concise, is find something that you can model and have some faith that it's possible. Then allow yourself to feel and do those things with yourself. Feel your emotions. It doesn't mean you have to cry and talk about it, but just check in. Close your eyes for a minute. Slow down. Get acquainted with yourself, your mind, your heart, and your body. I could recommend books, but I think at the most simplest place, it's that. And then when you get some comfort with that and you see some benefits, some fruit, some reward, some self-love, a release of anger you've been holding, some negative emotion or a belief, and then the women in your life, the brothers in your life, whatever it is, the man in your life, whatever it is, you're able to do that with them. And as a man, it is so nourishing to the soul to be able to actually really do that. Not because I want to get something from it, but because I know what it's like to get that from me. It just feels good to give it. And then it's a gift to others, and they feel safer, and they feel more respected, and they feel more heard. And it just blossoms. And so there's a lot of fruits. I mean, especially for men, if I go even more kind of raw, there are stereotypes of men, whether it's sexually or all these different things. And the paradox, and I've talked to a lot of women about this, and some that are almost twice as old as me, they have a lot of wisdom. And I taught them, and I can say that they agree, even women that I've been intimate with, where it's like, they're like, oh my gosh, it's like the chicken or the egg. The man's like, well, I want you to do this, this, and this. And the woman's like, well, I want you to do this, this, and this. And like, well, I shouldn't have to do that, that, and that. And like, well, I don't need to do that, that, and that. And it's like, we have different needs. What is it to be healthy masculine? What is it then to be healthy feminine? Maybe I'll wrap up with this, because again, I'm throwing a lot at you, is from the book, The Masculine Relationship. One quote that, like that, what you said earlier, you're like, yeah, but it's not fair. I battled with this on that a lot, and male clients I've worked with, this comes up. G.S. Youngblood says in his book, whether or not, so as the masculine, and that could be, whatever kind of relationship, I'm not saying it has to be a man, but whoever is that masculine force in the relationship, stick with that. And whoever that's the goal of the relationship, you check in as the masculine energy to the feminine, counterpart. And you have issues, problems, it's not what you want it to be. There can be more. The masculine, whether or not you are the problem, you absolutely can be the solution. Take it even further, whether or not you're the problem, you are the solution. And that leads in what it means to be masculine. And then you start doing things, and it's wild. The feminine just starts to shift. I'm like, wait, I've been wanting wait a minute, how am I actually, the feminine will behave and respond in ways that you're trying to get just by you being more masculine. So it's like, I'll finish here. All the things as a masculine energy that we typically want, paradoxically, we get by simply leading and being masculine. And then the feminine just opens up like a flower. It's really wild. So hopefully that makes sense as well. Hopefully that's useful to somebody.
Let me ask you this more on a personal level.
Right on.
If you could describe your journey in 3 words, not the destination, but the process, what would they be?
So many different answers I have. Uh, I would say discipline is freedom.
Mm,
It encompasses so many layers of what we talked about.
mm.
Not
Discipline is
punishment.
freedom.
Self-discipline is freedom, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, sexually, financially, nutritionally, all that stuff. To me, that's been my journey. I maybe I'll add one other layer. Have you heard that quote that's going around? That's like, "Good times create weak
Hmm.
men." That
Hmm.
everyone's talking about that. I firmly believe that I was a very weak man. No blame, no shame, and it's just not permanent. But I was. They never role model. I was raised by a woman that loves me, and I love her, and she did her best. I had no real good male role models. And a woman therapist I had actually said that women can't teach men how to pee standing up, and that always stuck with me. And so it's like I ran from discomfort. It scared me. I kept trying to find a false sense of safety and comfort and ease. So to me, like all my greatest gifts, whether it's almost ending my life or having a chronic cancer for 14 years, discipline's freedom in every way. It's a beautiful thing. Makes us very strong.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, 20 years from now, when people speak your name, what do you hope they say?
That maybe not in these words, but I just love this. Like I said, I believe it's why I'm here. That Dustin helped others grow flowers in the darkest parts of them by simply having known him. That would be the greatest honor.
Mm.
That'd be it.
Okay, another personal question for you. With all the work that you're doing to help others, what is it that you want people to know most?
They're absolutely not broken. Um, we are for the we are born as such beautiful, vibrant, thriving little beings with so much life and energy. And life starts to happen. And a lot of us get lost in those 7 children and say, "You're not broken." It's corny. So many people have said this. If I can do it, you can do it. It is so true. And a lot of the labels and the lifelong conditions that I think the human consciousness puts on other humans, so we have an organized understanding of how everything works. I've fallen away from that rigidity quite a bit. And I think we are far more capable of what most of us think, but we can't fully grasp it until we level up. And then we start seeing things we never thought possible. It was just a dream. It sounds a little bit corny, but I mean, I'm living proof, man. Like, there's a lot of other cool people in the world that are as well. It come from darkness, from pain, from horrible things. And we turn it into light and goodness. And we all innately have that ability. No one's special. It's not a gift. It's like a muscle. It's just, we all can do it. We all can do it. So I think that's, I just want people to know that. Like, I'll finish with this. One of my good friends had a coach, and I said, what was the most impactful thing that coach did for you? Thought about it for a while. He's like, it was because she believed in me 1000% to a level that made no sense to me for months, even when I didn't. She had faith in me, even when I didn't. And I think for those that have kind of risen through hell and like, you can do this. I believe in you because I believe in the soul, the spirit, your heart, your core, however you want to label it. There's immense power in there. And very few of us tap into even a small portion of it, but all of us can. So I'd say that.
Thanks for sharing that too, man. That was beautiful. All right. Last question. And I'm salty that this is the last one because this has been such a great conversation.
Thank you. Same here, man.
If you could use your platform to educate anyone who might be struggling with their mental or emotional health and might be uncertain of how or where to start, what would you say?
That is a very good question. There's so many nuances. I had to figure out how to summarize that for most people, if not all. I would say these people that we read about, that we see in movies, that we see in podcasts and television, the news, all these things, we look up to, idols, heroes, whatever it is. I would say if you're either sick of the pain, the suffering, the lack, the gunk, or you also or have this inkling that there's got to be something more to life. You're absolutely right. And so I would say, with technology we have, I didn't even see this answer coming, honestly, but with AI and with technology and the internet, search up your pain points. So I used to do some marketing too, and I was in sales, so I kind of know a lot of different elements of this. I'm like, okay, whether I've heard this podcast or I've seen other of your amazing podcast, I read a book, or I'm just like, I gotta change this. We have information all over the world at our fingertips. Search up your pain points, ask AI or something online. Here's what I'm going through. Here's what I want to achieve. What are the best tools? And even in my local region, or even if it's someone through online, whether it's for my budget or where I'm at now, who would be a good person to watch a podcast or read a book to learn from that's suited for my desires and my pain? I mean, if I try to chunk way up without specific tools and books and techniques, I would say that. I can zoom way down, but we have so much at our fingertips. And just to start, the first step is always the hardest. Just start. Read something, look something, be a little vulnerable to a friend. Share something, try something new. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So do something different. Take one step, and you'll be wildly surprised at how far that thing can unravel. So I would say that.
Thank you for that. I think we have 2 hours of flowers that we can give somebody for their dark places, and I'm so grateful for this.
Amen. And it's 111. I love that. 11, and 111. Yeah.
Again, I mean, I tried my best to express my gratitude for who you are and what you do, but I don't know if I was able to, because I don't know if words can adequately describe it, because the journey that you have been on and the gifts and flowers that you have been enabled with, that you're sharing with others, is just incredible. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful to know you, grateful to share space with you, and grateful to allow my audience to have an opportunity to get to know you as well.
Thank you, man. I too am very grateful. This is an amazing opportunity for me just to nourish each other, share, have fun, be ourselves. And I think it's amazing what you're doing with your podcast and I feel like you are leading in a big way in creating the podcast, going through your journey, facing your stuff, growing, being curious, allowing people like me to share. It's a gift. So I'm very honored to have met you. I'm curious to see where we go, what apartment we're going to move into. But no, seriously, man, it's. I look forward to when we speak again, when we text, whatever transpires. Um, it's an honor, man. Thank you.
Thank you for that. If people want to find you online or on social media, where can they find you?
So my website is first name, last name. So DustanDrakeCoaching.com. My name is spelled weird though. I always it's been a thing my whole life. So it's Dustan, Dustan Drake Coaching. Or I don't have a big presence on social media, but the biggest one would be Instagram. So that'd be at Dustan Drake. And you can find me that way. So yeah.
And what about the book?
So the book should be coming out in June 1st is our goal. And should I share the title? Oh, I won't share the title quite yet because it may change, but
Sure.
it's aimed at, kids from 7 to 12 and to help them, to put some flowers in their darkest parts before they take root. And that'll be on mainly Audible, all of the audiobooks, and we'll have a digital copy as well on Kindle and stuff. So we're going to go the self-publishing route. So if, it'll be on my website. It'll be wherever you can find me. I'll have some place to get to it, but that's where it'll be easy access there as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dustan, thank you again for this. Thank you so much for your time, for who you are, for your journey. Um, Thank you for what you do. Thank you for how you do it. And thank you for being you.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.